Hello, and thank you for joining us for another great Facebook Live video from Corporate College. Hi there, my name's Ashley Speaker, and today I have Rafaela Reyes joining me. She is the Corporate College Director of Organizational Effectiveness, and she's here to talk to us about diversity and inclusion. Rafaela, thank you so much for joining us.
Ashley, thanks for having me here.
Yeah, it's going to be a great conversation. This is obviously a hot topic right now. It has been for years, but especially with so much going on. First of all, though, before we get into, the meat of our conversation, could you give us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Oh, certainly. Let's see, I'm a graduate of Case Western Reserve University's master's degree in positive organizational development and change. And I have many years experience in leadership development and organizational change, organizational culture. And what can I say? I love the work that I do, and I love serving our clients here at Corporate College.
That's awesome. And I love these interviews because someone like you, who I get to work with day to day, I get to hear you as a subject matter expert and also, bringing some of your experiences that I might not have known before, as well as for the rest of our viewers. So thanks so much. One of the things I think is on everyone's mind, especially with the topic of diversity and inclusion, is, the surge of conversation that we've had regarding racial discrimination. Why are people talking about it, and why is that so important right now?
I think what happened to George Floyd really, hurt the heart of people in America and across the world. And, people are thinking, they're trying to rationalize it or try to understand. It really brought up a lot of emotionalism, and it even is coming into work. And so people are looking for that ability to kind of understand what's happening, and they want to be part of the solution because what happened really isn't within their value system.
That's so true. And so when you look at a place like Corporate College, how has this impacted us?
It's interesting because we've been doing diversity training and consulting work for many, many years. And now with all of this happening, our telephones are ringing off the hook because individuals and companies, they want to be part of the solution. And they're having some realizations that, maybe there is more that they can do. Maybe that there is more that they're not realizing, and they'd like for themselves and for their companies to take steps forward to create a more inclusive, a more that high performing culture where everybody feels valued and they all feel respected and they all feel like they belong and they can be their best at work.
It's so important in the workplace for every individual to feel that way, to feel included, to feel like they have value when they come to the table. Yeah, so we have so many conversations around diversity, and I think people have an idea of diversity, right? People have unique traits, personality traits or cognitive
Mhm.
traits, but then also we think about identity such as race or gender, even religion,
Yes.
and cultural backgrounds. But then
Mhm.
there's this topic of inclusion, and we pair it with diversity, but what does that mean? When we put it, especially with diversity?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Ashley. Inclusion is really about having that environment where people at work feel like their voice can be heard, like they matter, they feel valued, they feel respected, and that they have the same kind of career opportunities, development opportunities, project opportunities as everybody else has. So it's where you know people can really be flourish is basically what it is. Because I hope that everybody has that kind of an environment, but I know that many people, have had the experience that I've had before where, say you share an idea and they don't really take your idea, but when somebody else says it, that might be a little different, like I worked in a male dominated sales organization before, and you had to be a tough skinned salesperson to work there. Very few women. And I saw my ideas constantly being copied and taken by other people. So that's just one example where I just kind of wondered, I'm like, why aren't they listening to me? What's going on here? And, having that sense of belonging, like you're really valued and respected, makes such a difference, because it makes you feel more engaged in the organization. You get excited, and psychologically speaking, you get into that space where you want to give more, you want to do your best, you want to work harder and smarter. But when you're not engaged and you don't have that feeling of belonging, you do what you need to do the work a lot of times. You try to stay under the radar a lot of times. And what ends up happening is that organizations then end up being negatively impacted, because you don't get the creative ideas. You don't get that positive energy, that synergy that gets people together, that helps them to come up with ideas and come up with better decisions and better products and better approaches. All of that leads and impacts the bottom line of an organization. So the inclusion part of diversity and inclusion really, really impacts a company's performance and the outcomes and their bottom lines. And I think that companies are coming around to actually having that realization these days.
I think what you described is huge. Like, there are, the situation you described when someone's not feeling like they belong or valued, or that their ideas aren't taken seriously. I mean, that's really sad for both the individual, but also the organization who's missing out on that talent piece. And then also, I mean, backing up, use the word flourish to
Ah,
like have that sense of belonging, but also to flourish. And when an individual at an organization is flourishing, that
mm,
company is going to flourish, right?
absolutely. The team flourishes, people come together. All of a sudden they realize that, they're in on this together. And I think what happens is that they realize that their values are in alignment. But it's interesting in that example that I gave you, the leadership there didn't have poor values. They valued people. They valued women. But what happened is that they weren't realizing that they had this little bias.
Mm,
And they call it actually a similarity bias, because you feel more comfortable with people that are like you, and that's just how our brains are wired. So it's nothing that they could help, because it was unconscious. They had no idea about that bias, but their values were all in line, so it wasn't intentional by any means.
wow, that's huge. And I want to jump into that a little bit deeper too. Like,
Sure.
what do you mean by this unconscious bias and,
Oh my gosh.
the term similarity bias? Because I think, especially because it's unconscious, like we don't even know we're doing it
That's
sometimes.
exactly right, Ashley. Let me tell you, a good way of looking at the unconscious brain. We're all driving, imagine you're driving home from work, and all of a sudden you get a phone call. And it's like, okay, what's going on? Okay, and you're talking and you're talking. And then with, before you know it, you're home. And you're
Yes.
like, oh my God, how did I get home? I don't remember passing that intersection, that street, nothing. I don't remember any of this. So unconsciously, your brain was making these decisions. And the way it could make those decisions is because it had been down that road before. You had the memory and you had the experiences before, and your brain clicks into automatic pilot. And the reason why it has to do that is because research shows that we actually make 35,000 decisions a day.
Wow.
Exactly. What color shirt am I going to wear? All of those types of things. But what happens is that because we have all these experiences and we have, these memories, we can make so many of them so quickly. But what happens is that, and that's that unconscious piece about it. But when it comes to something that's different or new, or, like, what am I going to name my baby? Or, where are we going to move to? You start to get into that conscious and that critical thinking, and that's a different kind of thought process. But most of our decisions and our behaviors and everything come from that unconscious space. And so another piece is that we're wired to actually feel more comfortable with similarities, because we have experience and we have safety in that, because we've had that before. So something that's new or different puts our mind in a different space, the fight or flight with the amygdala attack happening. And it's like, what am I going to do? I have to think through this. And I don't feel quite as comfortable with this because I've never been there before. Or maybe I've seen these things on TV, is it really that way or not? And it's, and so the interesting thing is that knowing about that, like in corporate college, when we have our training classes, people come in and they realize all of the different elements of people, the things that are so different and so, different experiences that we've had, where we come from. Do we like, the beach, or do we like the mountains? I mean, people are so different that it's important to approach them as individuals. And once we realize, in the class about the variety of the essences of different people, then we start talking about this unconscious bias, and people have that realization. They're like, oh my gosh, if I'm not even conscious about it, I've got to start being conscious about it and mindful in order for me to make those choices for the behaviors that are really in alignment with my values. Because doing it unconsciously, there might be some behaviors or microaggressions that were coming out that I didn't even know about.
Wow.
And one of the great things about coming to corporate college diversity classes is that it actually helps you to have that realization, that aha moment, and say, wow, now I want to be more thoughtful in my approach with people. And for instance, if you happen to be a male leader and you start to reflect upon how you behave with a female employee, you can think, if that employee was a male or were to be a male, would I actually comment on, how beautiful they look today? Or would I come up and touch them on the shoulder when I'm talking to them? How would I behave? And so coming to the classes really opens up your mind to that space where it's like, wow, I'm more conscious now, and I really want to reflect upon how I've behaved in the past to check and see if that was really in alignment with my values, if the other person really felt respected and valued or not. And then it's also to think forward and say, okay, I'm going to go into this meeting and, this is how I want to behave, or I want to make sure everybody feels respected and heard. And then you start to behave a little differently and start to really listen with intent and ask people for things, information more, deeply. And then that's where your inclusive leadership skills come into play.
Wow. My brain is just going all over the place because now I'm like, oh my goodness, there's so many things I probably do and I don't realize it.
But we're all in the same boat. We're all in that same journey.
Yeah. So with that, I mean, you gave a wonderful example of, becoming aware and then reflecting on it. Do you have any, tools or tips as you're reflecting of like resources to go to help you overcome it? And kind of, it's obviously a journey, right? Like a process, because you're correcting maybe a habit that you didn't even know you had.
It is. It is. It's, one of the besides, of course, coming to corporate college for our open enrollment classes that we
Right.
have on diversity, or even contacting us to bring training for, for teams, for leaders. We also, of course, have diversity consulting and diversity coaching as options. But I'd say a good place if you want to start looking immediately, even after this video, is to go into YouTube and Google unconscious bias and start listening to some of those experts, because they really tell some fantastic stories that help you to see things a little differently and to have some aha moments. And you just might want to do that, maybe give yourself a commitment, once a week I'm going to do that, and I'm going to listen, and I really want to, talk with other people about their thoughts and experiences in that too.
Well, this has been really, really insightful. And I just wanted to give you the floor if you have anything else you wanted to add with all these great examples.
Hmm. I'd say that, it's really about just having our values in alignment with our behaviors. And that awareness is a good place to start. And we're your partners here at Corporate College. The amazing thing is that we're a subsidiary of Tri-C, and as such, we have diversity to the core of how we work as an organization within our leadership. And we've won many awards in regards to having a great approach towards diversity with our students and in our workplace. And so we'd like to share some of those options there with anyone that's interested, whether you're an individual or you want to bring your team to us or even your organization. We're here for you.
Absolutely. thank you so much for being here today to share your wisdom and knowledge and perspective on this great topic.
Thank you, Ashley, for having me.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. And for anyone who's viewing this video and wants to know more information about the diversity and inclusion programming at Corporate College, please visit the link in the description. And as always, be safe and healthy. Bye.
Bye-bye.